Hello and welcome to Good Morning with NTV Houston. This morning we have a special show. We will feature sports all morning long. I'm your host, Lauren Leal, and joining me this morning is a guy who has just about covered every sporting event that you can think of in the U.S., internationally. I mean, he has covered the Olympics in Greece, China, London. He's covered many other events here in the U.S., like the NBA playoffs, a dozen of World Series, Super Bowls. Not to mention, I'm tooting on his horn a little bit, he was named one of the top 10 writers in the country, top 10 columnists in the country by the Associated Press sports editors. We're talking about Houston Chronicle columnist Jerome Solomon.
Hi, thank you. That person sounds pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive. You have quite the resume, Jerome.
I wrote that though, so yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really
I can sell myself, yeah.
So let's talk about it. You've done so many different things. You covered so many different types of events. How did you even get into journalism and sports?
You want the long version? I didn't major in journalism in school, so I
know, because
really
you come from
a
background. You know, I know you've done a lot of different types of jobs, and journalism doesn't even fall under those umbrellas. So
yeah, I mean, I wasn't much of a writer even in school. I didn't work for the school newspaper or anything like that. I mean, other than term papers. I mean, I was a math person, so was always into numbers and
finance.
Well, not really that. More of engineering. That's what I majored in engineering in college. So I was much more of a numbers nerd more than anything. You know.
So where did the turn take?
The calculator and the pocket protector.
You wore a calculator in your pocket?
But you need the calculator for stuff. So yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you have to calculate.
The smartest person says that you need a calculator for stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I could do numbers in my head too. That was part of the numbers and stuff that I used to do. But yeah, I was pretty much a kind of geekish. I mean, I was an athlete, so I could play it off. I was still. I was a cool nerd. That's different.
What sports? What athlete?
I played basketball in high school.
Okay, so there's a little bit of the start going into sports.
Yeah. So, but. You know, I went to college and majored in engineering and didn't even consider anything in journalism at all. Engineering was really boring. It was not nearly as fascinating as I would like something to be, and I decided to just quit. And
you were, I assume, being in Houston, you were going into oil and gas? And
yes,
that was your plan?
I worked for a Tenneco Oil Company and Tennessee Gas Pipeline here in Houston. You know, they had a big building downtown, and I worked on, went to Louisiana for one full summer where we were doing a pipeline change out and, you're doing
like a project manager type deal.
Yeah, I mean, I get dirty too. I wear work boots and, gloves, and I got down there and did some sand blasting.
Not just the calculator stuff.
About that. Yeah.
No, I don't. That's not my field.
I mean, I know I don't present as Mr. Macho, but yeah, I can get under a pipe and sand blast and, clear it up for the welders to do what they do. Yeah.
Okay. So when did you say
I am here? I'm a man.
That's true. You can't underestimate whenever you've done so many different types of things. But when did you really say, okay, I'm ready to put this away. I want to take my life in a different direction?
Well, when I was stuck in the mud in Louisiana working under a pipe, I was like, I can do better than this. No, I mean, that was actually very interesting and fun, but I hadn't done much, hadn't traveled much at all. I grew up here in Houston in Acres Homes and hadn't been anywhere. And an opportunity, a friend said, you should look at being a flight attendant. And I was like, cool, what do they do?
Okay, so oil and gas to flight.
Exactly, and I worked for Continental Airlines as a flight attendant.
Wow, how long did you do that for?
Ever.
Yeah, because you get to travel and then stay at the places if you want, and then come back whenever you want.
All over the world, you're in a different place, different city every night, and you work only 3 or 4 nights a week. It's not that hard. Generally speaking, I mean, you have 15, 20 days off a month once you've built up some seniority. So I was able to, get out and go places.
That's so nice. 20 days off a month?
Yes.
You're only working for like 10 or so then.
Exactly. And at some point I was a flight service manager, so that's the person who's in charge of the flight and makes all the announcements and does that.
So whenever they do all the crazy dances too, whenever they can have fun on the mic, you were part of that?
No, I was very professional and straight down the line. By the book, me.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about
Okay,
that?
I bust out a rap every now and then, but
Bust a rap? Oh my gosh, can we hear one right now?
that's not gonna happen. No.
Do you have a rap name?
Let's not get into
Let's not get
what
carried
people
away.
in rap and all that, because then I would have to talk about your career. So.
Oh, what do you mean? I just talk on TV.
I know you've been around rappers. I'm not gonna out that.
Okay, so
You leave my rap career out of it. I'll leave yours out. Okay, is that cool?
That's a deal. That's a deal. So oil and gas to flight attendant, and then you went into journalism?
Exactly, and you were talking about the 20 days off a month. Well, part of that was I'd been flying for a few years. I was able to just work on the weekends, so I would leave Houston on Friday and say you're in Los Angeles Friday night and New York Saturday and back home on Sunday. So I had all week to do whatever or do nothing. And so I went back to school at U of H just to take some classes to, try to figure out if I wanted to change to something different.
Okay.
And one of the professors there, really enjoyed my writing. And she said, man, your writing is really interesting and different from what we normally see. Have you ever considered doing any kind of writing at all? And I was like, not really. I hadn't.
And back then, when you did the writing in school, was it sports or was that just
It was
any
these
types
are
of
more
matters?
reports and term papers and stuff. So it wasn't journalism at all. It wasn't really sports. I mean, my senior paper in high school was about a hero of yours, and it was Moses Malone.
Okay. Okay.
Like, hey, that was a great paper. Some of the best writing I've ever done.
I would like to see it. I would like to read it.
I don't have that. I'd like to read it myself now that I think about it.
I mean,
My mom probably does have
so.
it now that I think about it. There's no telling. She keeps a lot of my stuff. She did send me some of the ribbons and awards that I won in elementary school here recently. She came across a
that's so
box,
sweet.
where I was named the fastest kid in school and #1 math student, #1 athlete.
Okay, so you did track in school?
No. I went out for the track team after basketball season one year, and I was really fast. I thought I could be a sprinter, and so I go out to track after for track practice, and I'm showing up, and they're like, "Okay, we'll loosen up and stretch," and I'm like loosening and stretching, no problem with this, and then the coach says, "Okay, we're going to run to the park and back to campus." I'm like, "What park?" The park's like a mile and a half up and then it's back. So it's like a quick 3-mile run before practice. I'm like, no, I'm a sprinter, coach. I didn't.
Yeah, I don't do the
come for
longevity. No, that's not
here
me.
for the distance.
Right.
And they're like, no, everybody runs 3 miles before we start actually practicing. I'm like, I'm gonna go back.
And what does practice consist of?
I don't know, because I'm going back in the gym so I can play
You
some
were like,
basketball.
no, I'm not doing this. I'm out.
No, I didn't come out here to work on running around the neighborhood. So yeah, my track career lasted about that long.
Speaking of track, something on your resume that you have is the Beijing Olympics. When Usain Bolt received criticism worldwide for his showboating at the finish line, apparently this was your fault. What is that about?
I take full responsibility for it.
And why is that? I've never heard this story.
Well, it's not like, he's Mr. Humble and quiet anyway. So he's always had a personality and he likes to show it. But this particular race, it was in Beijing, because of the time difference, the races were in the morning.
Okay.
But my seat at track and field, the Chronicle, they seat you based on, who you worked for. And the Chronicle, we just had a great seat right at the finish line, about 3 yards in front of it, and you could.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Oh, it's just, you couldn't buy this seat. It's really, but they take care of the media for those kind of events. And so I'm sitting there in my seat waiting for the big race like everyone else is. Well, I happen to be wearing a bright yellow shirt, a mock turtleneck, and no big deal. It was just a yellow shirt.
Okay.
Didn't think anything of it at the time. And of course, because just in general the way the media works, but it's a lot of international media at a big event like the Olympics, I was the only black person sitting anywhere near me.
Okay.
So I'm a bald-headed black guy
with a bright yellow shirt.
Still not a factor. Until that is, Usain is coming down the track. He has a huge lead over the rest of the field, and he glances to the
media
stand where fans are seated.
Oh, okay.
But I'm seated at the finish line, so he just looks and he sees a bald-headed black guy with a bright yellow shirt, which is the gold color of the Jamaican track team. They're green and gold. And so he looked at me and thought I was, a Jamaican fan, and he was pointing and instead of running full speed across the finish line, he started patting himself and,
he did
celebrating a little bit. Yeah, and he celebrated, and people were like, man, he could have, run much faster had he finished the race. Instead, he was, showboating.
Like, yes,
and I was like, yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah, that's my boy. I'm for you. Oh my
God. But I'm not Jamaican.
Wait, so you tell me, you had to talk to him about that afterward.
That day I didn't, but a week or so later, I caught up with him, and he was like, "You were the one," and I was like, "Yeah, that was me."
That's me. It was not from Jamaica,
like, you
but
got me in my trouble, man.
Right.
But it was pretty funny.
Oh
but
my,
that's
oh my word! What
not exactly
story.
a claim to fame, but I know I was there.
No,
and there are pictures of him crossing, before he crosses the finish line, patting himself on the chest and looking off to the side and looking at your boy.
That's all because of you.
I'll take it.
Look, you're looking at history that was made right here, right here.
But that was probably the most amazing thing. I mean, I've seen a lot of amazing things in sports, but for a man to run that fast and to do it with the style and grace that he's done it, and no one's ever run faster than that just, I mean, I'm just fortunate to be in those situations where I can witness history like that.
And like you said, you can't buy a seat where you were sitting too.
Yeah, and same thing with Michael Phelps, and I think, I don't know what the number is. I think he ended up his career, because he had a couple late, but he ended up with like 23 gold medals to his career. And I was sitting there watching. You got to experience probably 19 of them. 18 or 19 of them, yeah. I mean, I saw all of his races even before he became big, all the way back in 2004 in Athens, and then in 2008 in Beijing, and then 2012 in London. And those races are just, you can't beat it. I mean, and back then, whenever you were in the dirt, in the mud, you never thought you'd be seeing all of this history being made in front of your eyes. Not in Monroe, Louisiana. No, I did not consider that I'd ever be in Beijing, China, or London, watching an amazing sporting event. No. Right. And another place that you got to experience living in and working for in New England with the Patriots. Bill Belichick, what was it like working with him, working alongside him? Well, it's when you see, one thing that I enjoy the most about sports is at the highest level, you're watching people perform, who just can do things that no one else on the planet can do. I mean, Are you regarding to Tom Brady? And people like to say the GOAT? When you're that good at something that so many other people have tried to do, it amazes me to be able to witness it up close. And you bring up Bill Belichick, and I got to see up close the greatest coach of all time, period. I don't even think it's really debatable. He's so good at what he does across the board, so much smarter than everyone else. He works differently than everyone. He sees things that other people don't see, and to ask him questions every day to get his answer about how he does it, and things that he sees is just it's remarkable to me that someone could have the vision that he has, and he's still going at it. I mean, and he continues to get better. And he's not going to. It's football. It's the NFL. You're not going to win a championship every year, but they are always there. They're always right there in the middle of it. And Belichick keeps working to get better. And Tom Brady's the same way. When I was there, I worked for the Boston Globe, and I was the lead beat writer for the Patriots. And when I was there, I went and found Tom Brady's quarterback coach, like not the coach for the team. Every NFL team has a quarterback's coach, but Brady had a private coach who was a junior college coach at a small school in California, because Brady's from the Northern California area, and this guy coached at San Mateo. He passed away a couple of years ago, and no one had done a story on him. And I found out that Brady worked with him a lot, and
That's
so
what he's what made him
even
so
though he'd
good.
already won 3 Super Bowls and was already Tom Brady, he was still going to work with his private quarterbacks coach
He
to
still
improve.
wants to get better. He still
And
wants to improve.
He'd fly him in the middle of the season to work out and to help him get better, and he got better. I mean, this was before, and he'd won 3 Super Bowls, but he wasn't throwing the ball nearly as well as he started to throw it a few years later. So he continued to improve, and that stands out to me. When you can be at the highest level, you're already a champion, you're already in the discussion of being the best, and you
you're
continue want to improve. You want to get better. So the discussion with Tom Brady went from, well, how good is he actually? Because the first Super Bowl they won it with the #1 defense, and they ran the ball. And they won it again. Now, he led them on the game-winning drive, and he did it again. He led them on the game-winning drive, but he wasn't leading the league in passing. He wasn't throwing for a bunch of yards because they had a great defense. Well, the discussion went from how good is he to, he might be the best quarterback playing right now. And then it's like, he might be the best ever. And then he kept on winning, and now you can't even ask, is he the best ever? He's by far the most accomplished. I mean, he's been to far too many Super Bowls and won more than everyone, but I think he's the best as well.
And how he got there is kind of by the statement, there's always room for improvement.
He continues to try to get better.
Well, Jerome, that'll do it right now, but we'll be right back. Join us. We'll be right back here with Good Morning with NTV Houston.
Good morning to you.
And welcome back to Good Morning with NTV Houston. I'm your host, Lauren Leal, joined with Houston Chronicle columnist Jerome Solomon. We have a sports special continuing the topic and starting a new topic, actually. Rockets voice versus the Warriors. We're coming up on Game 3, and it's a highly anticipated game. And it's not looking too hot for the Rockets. 0 for 2, and both injuries from both NBA stars. Last on Tuesday on Game 2, let's talk about those. James Harden specifically. Bleeding in the eyes.
Right.
We saw him leave. We saw him come back, and he still managed to put 29 points up.
Yeah, he played well, especially considering he couldn't really see, and certainly he was sensitive to light. So when after the game, he comes into the post-game interview room, and the camera lights, for television, he's holding his head down because his eyes are very sensitive to it, and that's going to be a problem probably by the time he gets to Game 3. There's no question he won't be 100%. How much it affects him, we just don't know. We haven't been able to talk to him since the game.
Tuesday.
Right. So that was late Tuesday night. It probably got worse on Wednesday. The Rockets have a practice on Thursday, so we'll get a sense of if he can practice and what goes into it. But he'll play. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, he played Tuesday night after getting scraped across, stabbed in the eye, basically.
Can you imagine that? Someone just coming down and jamming.
That's life in the business. And Draymond Green has poked other people in the eyes too. He plays with
so
a reckless
dirty,
abandon.
man.
It's not dirty. It's like
Really?
get your eye out of the way, and his fingers wouldn't go into
Really?
it.
What if I said that to you? Just get your eyes out of the way so I don't just jab you on accident.
Well, he didn't do it on purpose.
I know, they
However,
were both fighting for the rebound from James.
If you go after the ball with the aggressiveness that Draymond tends to go after it, you can hurt people. It's the same with Patrick Beverley. He's not a dirty player. He just plays so hard and plays with no concern for what else is going around him. I'm going to get the ball, and if your knee happens to be in the way, that's your personal problem.
And Beverly's always been that way. He is always just like all in.
I mean, and he has to be that way. He was a guy
He's a smaller guy.
He had to play
Yes,
all
yeah.
over the world that nobody in the NBA wanted him. So he played in Russia and a bunch of smaller countries just trying to find a way to be a professional basketball player. And he finally got into the NBA, and he wasn't going to let anybody kick him out. So
right.
yeah, I mean and Draymond Green, is not like that, but in his mind he is. He thinks he's an underdog. He thinks people don't give him the respect that he deserves. So he plays extra hard. He puts in more to it. And, you get stuff where the guy pokes somebody in the eye every now and then or kicks him in the not eyes every now and then.
And not about.
But Draymond did go over and say, "Are you all right?" I mean, he showed some concern.
A little bit. A little. I feel like he could have done more, but it is what it is.
I mean, he's not a doctor.
That's true. That's true. And talking on the other side of the ball is Steph Curry
yeah,
getting hurt too. But this wasn't by a player. This was just.
Yeah, he dislocated a finger, and he says it didn't really affect him, but it was wrapped or taped, and then he missed a bunch of shots that he normally makes, so he didn't shoot very well.
Do you think he'll be back to that level that he normally is, draining the threes on Saturday?
He's one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. So eventually he's going to go nuts and hit some shots. And even when he's not playing as well as he can play, he's very dangerous. He can hit shots from 30 feet, and and that's just the way he is. He hit the game-winning shot basically in Game 1 when the Rockets got caught in a switch situation, and he had Nene guarding him, and he's like, this is a big man, an old guy, and he just stepped back and drained it, and that's the player that he is. So the Rockets they're in a lot of trouble. I mean, but everybody's in trouble against the Warriors. They're just that good.
And do you think being the playoffs, it makes it worse? Because I feel like during this regular season, the Rockets play with so much more, like they're so aggressive. Now it's kind of like, I'm like, I felt like they were really cold and almost like scared in a sense.
Well, the playoffs are a different animal, for one. But when you're playing on the road and against the defending champion, a team that's won 3 of the last 4 championships, the best team in basketball, there's a different level of nerves. There's a different level of anxiety that you come across that's different from playing, some any old team, on some random Tuesday during the regular season when it doesn't really matter. You play 82 games. Those games don't really factor. Now it's very serious. And players who are not star players tend to play better at home than they do on the road. And that's just the way that it works.
Comfortable.
They're much more comfortable.
Right.
And the Rockets depend a lot on, their supporting cast of James Harden. So Harden will do what he does, and he hasn't had a special game, but he's been very good. He and Kevin Durant have scored the same number of points in the first 2 games. And so Harden has played really, really well, but Gerald Green didn't play as well as he can play. So I would expect him to have a decent game in Game 3 or 4. Daniel House didn't play very well at all, and I would expect him to step up and make some shots and play better when the games are at Toyota Center. That's just the way that it works. Guys and role players for the Warriors will not play as well in Toyota Center as they do in the Oracle. And the Oracle, on top of that, is one of the most difficult places to play in all of basketball because their fans are nuts. It's extremely loud, and it's just an arena that's built for noise and sound, and it's packed, sell out. They've had 350 straight sellouts, and it's a dedicated crowd that knows the sport really well. And the Warriors are really good.
It's easy to cheer for a team whenever they're
But they also have, and I was talking to this with Jonathan Fagan, who covers the Rockets and the NBA for the Chronicle. The Warriors fans, because they have players like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, who are 2 of the best 3-point shooters in the game, you can hear them, their anticipation when one of those guys is about to pull up from way outside. And when they make a 3-pointer, it's louder and different than 3-pointers made in every other arena because they make so many of them. And their fans just go,
eat it up.
And when they miss, they go, oh. It's hilarious, but it really, and when you're defending one of those guys.
And as a player, you're like, it amps you up and you're ready to go and you're fired up. And of course, if you're on the opposing side,
it can be deflating when
they
hit a couple of those shots. It can be deflating, and you're playing really well, and you're like, we're in control, and man, we got him. and then he'll shoot one from way out there somewhere, and the place goes nuts, and you're like, what can we do? He can't be stopped. And James Harden does that to other teams where they decide, we can't stop this guy. What do we do?
Right. And speaking of the fans at Golden State, but round 1, the Rockets played the Jazz, and in Utah, those fans are serious as well.
Yeah, Utah's one of them.
How would you compare those two crowds?
The Utah crowd is nasty. I mean, they're mean and ugly and racist sometimes, and they cross the line.
I feel like that's LSU football right there.
I'm not gonna. You're gonna jump on the Tigers. I'm gonna leave those people alone. They're crazy.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
And so is that kind of how the Jazz fans are?
Yeah, Jazz fans they're over the top, but they are intelligent. They are dedicated, and they're very loud, and it's a tough place to play. But the Rockets handle that. You know, they won there, and they're good enough to do that. They're good enough to win at the Oracle too in Oakland. They won there last year in the playoffs. They beat the Warriors there, so they can do that. And they're going to have to beat them there if they want to win this series, no doubt. But the Oracle is not even important anymore. Toyota Center Saturday night is a must-win.
Right.
No team has ever come back from being down 0-3 in a 7-game series in the NBA. So if they lose Saturday, then it's just a matter of time. It's like
and it plays out like that.
Yeah, it's like when the cat gets his tail stuck on the train track. It won't be long now.
Okay, we're not going to go there. We're not going to animal. I'm a huge cat person, Jerome. I'm a huge cat person.
Okay. Well, then don't get your cat's tail trapped on the train track when the train's coming.
He'll never get near a train. So speaking of the fundamentals of winning Game 3, Game 2, turnovers like crazy. 4 turnovers in less than 3 minutes, 13 at the half.
Yeah, they were not focused.
This is the main aspect that they really need to focus on and not do.
Well, yeah,
aside from
they were not
missing.
as focused coming in, but Golden State is a really good defensive team. They're long. They've got rangy players. They started their small lineup, and they call it the death lineup, where Andre Iguodala is playing, and he's one of the best defenders in the league. Draymond Green was a defensive player of the year, so he's one of the best defenders in the league. Klay Thompson is maybe the best two-way player in the league, or one of, because he's a great defender. So when they lock in on you defensively and those long arms, it's really easy to find yourself turning the ball over if you're not paying attention and you're not sharp.
I was
going to
say, what's the key to not getting those turnovers?
Well, they have to be sharp from the beginning. The Rockets have started off slowly, both the Game 1 and Game 2. They scored 19 points in one game and 20 in the other in the first quarter. And this is a team that can score 40 points in the quarter when they get rolling. So they need, it's like with anything, you have a little bit of success, it feeds on itself and you play better. They haven't had success early and it's hurt them. So if they make a couple of shots at Toyota Center on Saturday and the crowd gets going and people get a little pumped up and they focus, it's easier to focus when things are going well. When things are not going well, you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're thinking about what could go wrong. So it's like, man, I threw this one away. I better be careful with this one. And you're being careful and you're thinking about it. And then you throw that one away. And it just adds up to itself.
They lose their focus. And I feel like that happens a lot, and they stop playing as a team.
Well, they always play as a team. It's just part of their style of playing as a team is everyone has a green light. So Mike D'Antoni's system is, don't worry about the last shot you missed or the last 10 shots you missed. Make the next
one.
Right. And he won't take a player out of the game for missing shots. He won't criticize you for missing shots. He'll criticize you more for not taking shots. And that's part of their system. You have to shoot the ball. You have to make the shots, but you have to take them. You can't make it if you don't take it, first of all.
And they missed so many shots in Game 2.
But they're missing a little too much. In Game 1. Game 2, they made more shots, but it's still a matter of they have to score to beat the Warriors, and they haven't scored enough. They messed around and got over 100 in Game 2, but it had been 6 straight playoff games against the Warriors where they didn't score 100 points. If you're not going to score 100 points, you're not going to beat Golden State very often.
Very true. Going back to what you said about D'Antoni, do you think that we have been playing the Warriors in the playoffs 4 times out of 5 years, 4 and 5 years. Do you think his job is on the line this time?
No. Well, one, they've lost this. If they lose this one, it'll be the fourth time in 5 years. The Rockets have lost to the Warriors. Mike D'Antoni didn't lose those. You know, he was
But he is the head coach. I mean, he's a vital part.
But he was only the head coach for last year against the Warriors. He wasn't there the first two.
That's true.
Those Kevin McHale's losses. Don't throw that on D'Antoni. You know.
Sorry, D'Antoni.
And last year's loss, they went 7 games. They went to the 7th game. It was a maxed out series, and they would have won it if Chris Paul hadn't pulled a hamstring and missed the last 2 games. So let's see how this one plays out. We get a better sense of what they're going to do. I don't think his job's on the line at all. I think he's done a great job without question, and he's put in something that would work. But it's not. It would be different if a team was underachieving. You know, if they were losing to a team that wasn't good, a team that wasn't as good as they were. You're not playing well. You're not accomplishing anything. Well, that's not the case. Everybody's losing to the Warriors. So if you're going to fire a coach for losing to the Warriors, then fire everybody because the Warriors are beating everybody. They're that good, period. And when Kevin Durant leaves after this season is over, which he's most likely going to do, now the Warriors are not quite as dominant. They have only 3 All-Stars instead of 4 All-Stars. Durant's the best player on their team, one of the best 2 or 3 players in the NBA. He joined the team a couple years ago. That changed everything.
And like we said about Durant, James scored the same amount of points of him last game when he had his eyes bleeding out. So the Rockets can easily do, not easy, but the Rockets, it's doable. They can beat the Warriors.
Well, James needs more help. I mean,
it's not just him.
Yeah, Durant and Harden are scoring the same amount of points, but on game 2, 2 other Warriors scored 20 points. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry had over 20.
Right.
And they had 6 players with at least 15 points. The Rockets, on the other hand, it's James and the rest of them. So the rest of them have to step up and play more. And Chris Paul said that he needs to be more aggressive. He needs to deliver some. And he can. He's capable of it. He's playing okay, but he's not taking over the game as much as he can. And he might have to, depending on James's eyes on Saturday.
Depending on injury and age is a huge factor looking to next season. Do you think they need a lot more recruits? Because this team is just getting older and older. And I feel like a couple years ago they were building with Lou Williams, with Montrezl Harrell. We kind of lost everyone at the Clippers. Do you think that we're gonna need to get all these new guys in?
That was a risk they took. I don't call it a risk. It was a trade they made that they had to make. I mean, because Chris Paul is that good, and that changed the team. You had Lou Williams and Montrez and on the roster now. You're not going to beat the Warriors. Chris Paul.
They did just lose to the Warriors.
Right, exactly. So and that was with 3 former Rockets scoring like 80 points a game in that series. So no, it's Daryl Morey, general manager of the Rockets. He does a lot of turnover. He's always looking for new faces and new players. And this season, the team has transformed from the team that went on the court in the first night to what they put out there now. Totally different roster. I mean, there are 3 or 4 guys who are playing a lot now. Austin Rivers didn't come here until after Christmas. Kenneth Faried didn't come here until Christmas time, and Iman Shumpert didn't come here, and still hadn't come here the way he was shooting the other night. But
I don't understand why those air balls were happening the other night.
Because he was throwing up some bricks.
And that's what you said. That's Mike D'Antoni's tactic is just keep shooting.
Yeah, I mean
that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, you say that, but when they get hot and start making some, you change your mind.
Yeah.
So if you don't shoot it, it doesn't go in if you don't shoot it.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
It would be easy to say, well, James should take all of the shots. Well, he can't do that. You know, they're leaving guys open. You're wide open. You're not being guarded. You have to shoot the ball, but you need to make them.
You have to make those shots. Do you think we'll ever see that championship team again, possibly this year?
This year, I wouldn't bet on it. It's like I said, the Warriors are just too good. They're up. They needed to win a game in Oakland. Now they'd have to win 4 of the next 5 games to win this series. They could do it. I'd be surprised if they did. The Rockets are building toward a championship. I mean, Harden has been, and he will be this year again, either first or second in the MVP voting like 4 times now in the last 5 years. So you've got a star player You got to put more and more around him and continue improving to get it to a championship. And it'll help significantly if the Warriors break up. If Kevin Durant goes to New York, which is rumored that he might happen, if Klay Thompson decides he wants to go play for the Lakers because his dad was a Laker, and you do that, now all of a sudden the Warriors aren't the juggernaut that they were before. So the Rockets would be a favorite then, and they're just not a favorite now. The Warriors are too good.
Right. Well, that'll do it for our Rockets and Warriors talk right now. Stay with us. We'll be back talking about the Astros. Stay with us with Good Morning with NTV Houston.
Good morning to you.
Welcome back to Good Morning with NTV Houston. I'm your host this morning, Lauren Leal, joined with Houston Chronicle columnist Jerome Solomon for our sports special. And for this segment, we are going to the Houston Astros. They've kind of been up and down, Jerome. We were talking a little bit earlier, and the series they're in right now with the Minnesota Twins is an example kind of how their season has been. First night, opening the series, they won 11-0, which was awesome, and then lost on Wednesday night, 6-2. Who knows what's going to happen tonight, Friday? But I mean, why is this happening? Why do they keep going up and down? Colin McHugh, is he a factor? The pitcher? I mean,
well, that's baseball for one. You're not going to win every game. It doesn't work that way. It's not like football where you can dominate and just roll through everything. They got off to a slow start in the beginning. I mean, they just couldn't hit for the first week and a half. 2 weeks of the season, so that affected them. But their starting pitching is doing fine. Their hitting is coming around, and I mean, it's a long season. I mean,
over 160 games.
There's no need to panic over a game or two when they play 162 of these rascals, and they're going to be one of the teams that's contending for a World Series. Period. That's just all there is to it. I mean. The panic over, or if there's a mild panic over them not just dominating and rolling through for the start, is understandable because they've been so good now for the last couple of years. So people are watching and going, hey, we're expecting greatness.
Right.
And so just when they're just average, it bothers people. But the Boston Red Sox won the World Series last year. They're below 500 right now. The Yankees were in the American League Championship Series against the Red Sox, close to making it to the World Series last year. They're one of the favorites, and their record is worse than the Astros right now. They're off to a rough start, and half of their team is on the disabled list or the injured list now since they changed the name of it. So that's just the way it goes. People are up and down, but the Astros are healthy, so that's a good thing. Their star players are coming around who got off to a slow start. Altuve, you knew eventually he would get going. George Springer's gotten going. Alex Bregman was off to a slow start. He's starting to ramp up a little bit. They're going to be good. They're going to have the best offense in baseball probably when it's all done. They haven't hit well with runners in scoring position, and so they've gotten guys on base but haven't driven them in. And
they've left so many guys
once
stranded.
They start doing that, and it'll come in bunches, and you'll just see there will be a stretch of a couple of weeks where they're just scoring 8, 9, 10 runs a game, and it'll settle all the nerves. But it's May. It's the first week of May. Relax, just calm down. The baseball playoffs don't start till October. You'll be wearing coats and jackets. Well, not coats.
Not yet. We're in Texas, Houston, Texas, at that. But
people will be. There will be snow somewhere in the U.S. by the time baseball really gets serious. Right now, it's playtime.
Speaking of playtime, and Alex Bregman, he did a lot in the off season. Like, he started his new YouTube channel, was on social media constantly, just posting about it and to his Instagram. Was this an effect of how he's playing now? Because I feel like 2 seasons ago they won the World Series, and then after that he played, and I just feel like he's gotten better and better, but so has his showboating, if you would say.
Well, I mean, he likes himself.
Yeah, he does.
And he likes the attention. There's nothing wrong with that. The season he had last year where he was a legitimate MVP contender was off the charts. I mean, it was even Jeff Luhnow, the general manager of Astros. I talked to him, and he said, "Look, we don't expect him to have those kind of numbers because he outperformed what you would project." I mean, yeah, I mean, he's a good player, could be a great player, but he played like a Hall of Famer last year, and that's too soon. And people got to remember too, he's only been up in the league for like 3 years, so he still has some room for growth. He has to learn, what works and what doesn't work, and how to to be the player that he thinks he can be. He's not a finished product at all. I mean, he just signed a contract where he's making $20 million a year, but one of the reasons the Astros are so happy to sign that contract is that in a couple of years, he'll be underpaid because you can get Alex Bregman for only $20 million a year. You're doing all right. There are guys out there making 30, 35.
Right.
So they expect him to be good. He's going to be good. He's going to have some ups and downs, and he was definitely not going to be the same player this year as he was last year, because last year was just amazing. It was just crazy for a player to deliver like he did every opportunity he got. So the YouTube channel, I don't think it has anything to do with what happens on the field, and all of that is, his messing around with people on social media. That's what he does. He did that last year when he was, doing well and hitting the ball much better.
And that's when I believe he started the stare.
Yeah, and the stare, it's just fun. Baseball, they have to find something to keep their energy level up because they're sitting and spitting and scratching for 3 hours a night with nothing. There's not a lot of action in a baseball game.
Is that a sport that you played when you grew up too?
Not officially. I mean, I played,
Little League Jerome?
No, there's no Little League Jerome. No. But I love baseball, but I wasn't particularly keen on, ground balls bouncing up and hitting me in the face. And, I kind of like my face.
Oh, okay. But
not that much. I could use some work, actually.
Oh, really? Really? So you want me to cover up your shot right here? Yeah, so the key players to the Astros this season, not to focus right now, it's just the month of May, but the key players, the new contracts, Justin Verlander, he's been doing really well.
He's been Justin Verlander. That's who he is and always has been since he came up with the Tigers back in 2005 or something. He's one of the dominant players in the game. He's off to a heck of a start, and that's one of the reasons you shouldn't really worry about any kind of up and down, because Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole, the two starters at the top of the Astros rotation, every time they come around, you got a good chance of winning those games. So the Astros aren't likely to have a long losing streak because Verlander and Garrett Cole won't allow that to happen. I mean, and Verlander keeps doing this, and he married a supermodel, and
that's true.
And he messes with people on social media, and he goes down and goes to fashion shows and things of that nature during the baseball season. He's a great golfer, so he obviously spends some time on the golf course. None of that has any effect on what he does on the mound. Right.
And you talked about Garrett Cole, other pitcher, but all he throws are fastballs is how I feel, and
they can't hit him. So what's the problem?
No. I feel like he's been getting hit off of a lot. Actually,
not really. I mean, he's for him, he's one of the dominant throwers in the game. He throws so hard that it's difficult for him to think of mixing it up. And why would he start trying to throw other things when they really can't hit him when he's on? And he's on most of the time. I mean, he's going to be all right. I mean, like guys like Colin McHugh are trying to prove that they could be a starter at this level. He started a couple of years ago. He was in the bullpen last year. He's much more likely to be up and down. And Wade Miley, who they just signed this year, who came in as a starter, was pretty average in his career until last year, and then he had a great season. And the question was, now he came to the Astros, can he duplicate that and have another season? And he's off to a pretty solid start. So pitching is not a problem. Hitting won't be a problem. It's, like I said, it's May. They're doing fine. Just relax, calm down. They're not going to fall behind.
Don't stress out, no anxiety.
No, go to the game, enjoy.
Well, next week.
It's not a night-to-night pressure situation.
Right.
For a fan, it shouldn't be anyway.
Well, coming next week, Texas Rangers. They've been struggling with them in these series.
And it makes no sense. Yeah.
It makes no sense. Why is this?
The Rangers are not very good, and they're not going to be any good this year. They're going to lose a lot of ball games.
Are they just in their heads?
They've been beating the Astros. They've just been lucky in a way. I mean, they caught them early when the Astros weren't playing well.
Right,
so,
the first week.
So, that got them going a little bit. And then they played them again, and the Astros didn't play well. They fell way behind in a game there in Arlington and made a great comeback. They hit 4 home runs in the last couple of innings and made it interesting. It was a fun game to watch, but they didn't win.
They didn't win.
I would expect them to dominate the Rangers when they come, because people like you are going to keep bringing it up to them. Why can't you beat the Rangers? So
hello, I mean,
there'll be a little extra focus for them coming in, and they'll treat it like it's a much more serious game or series than it really is. Like I say, no series in May is really important, but this one is. This one they'll treat it like it's important, and they'll show what they're made of. I would be surprised if they didn't just dominate the series just so they could get some little payback for the first couple times they played them.
And fans will show up too.
Rangers fans actually show up a lot at those games at Minute Maid, so it's there's
so
a natural.
close. I mean, Arlington.
It's a natural Houston-Dallas thing, and when the Astros moved over to the American League and started playing them regularly, it's a legitimate rivalry. And I don't think anybody cares about the silver boot. They probably don't even know where the thing is. But, there is a boot that allegedly goes to the team that wins the series during the year. But and a couple of years ago, the Rangers dominated the Astros so much that had they just broken even with the Rangers, they would have been in the playoffs, and they didn't go to the playoffs because they kept losing to the Rangers. They fixed that last year. Now it's back.
Now they got to continue.
Yeah, but the better team.
The better team will show.
Eventually shows, yeah.
And speaking subjects from the Astros, talking about what you discussed earlier with yourself, running Usain Bolt. Now we have the fastest kid in the country here, Drake Jesuit, Matthew Bowling. What do you think about that? You've witnessed so many races. How does he continually keep winning the races and get the times that he does?
It's pretty amazing, actually, especially for a kid who. And he is a talented athlete. He's a heck of a runner, and he has a form and style, and he works extremely hard. He'd already signed a scholarship to go to the University of Georgia, so he was a legitimate runner and track star before this track season really got going. But he goes to the TSU relays, and the coach entered him in the 100 for the first time because he hadn't run it. He was like, well, let's run this 100 because that'll help your speed in the 400, so you'll get off to faster starts and you can work on some of the sprint techniques that you would need to be able to make the 400 is the full lap around and the 100 is just a straightaway. Well, he had never run it competitively, and he goes out and runs the fastest time in the country. Like, boom. And they're like, wait a minute, we didn't know you could do that.
Right. I spoke with a coach a couple weeks ago, and he was like, you know what? We didn't see that coming from Matthew. We didn't think that. And then, boom, he did it. And the long jump, too.
And now he's actually worked on it. So he's practicing it now. And running at that level, it really is, it's about being athletic and in shape and, working hard. But there's specific technique. So if you don't get off to a certain start out of the blocks, you might lose a race. If you take a bad step along the way, you would lose the race. And, guys like Usain Bolt knew exactly how many steps it takes to run 100 meters. So,
okay.
and one of the weird things that most people don't know, and it is a geeky track thing, but at each level, but it's certainly the highest level of track, the fastest runners in the world, they take steps at about the same speed.
Really?
And so what separated Usain Bolt from the rest of them is he's taken a step at the same time with everyone else, but his steps
His stride is longer.
strides out there because he's 6'4", 6'5". So no one his size had ever been able to run fast enough to take advantage of that length. He was able to do that. Bowling is not short. You stood next to him and interviewed him, so he's got some height to him,
Right.
and he's got a perfect form and style. And man, he's explosive. I mean, this race he ran last weekend at the regional meet, where he ran a 9.98, and only 2 high school kids have ever gone below 10 seconds. And yeah, it was wind aided, but please don't let that fool you. This boy was moving, and he got out of the box really fast. So he must have had a really technique-wise, perfect start. And then he let his speed just take over, and he's accelerated through the middle of it, and he was gone. I mean, and it's going to be fun to watch him at the state track meet in Austin, and that's where those national reputations are built. But he did it at the TSU relays, he did it at the Texas relays, he's done it at the regional. If the wind is a legal wind when he gets to Austin for the state meet, I wouldn't be surprised if he sets a record. I mean, he's that talented. It'll be a fun thing too. I love track. I mean, it's
in your
a pure
blood. You
sport.
started it when you were younger.
It's a pure sport. I mean, let's run. If I'm faster than you, I win.
Let's do it. it's not subjective.
Yeah,
it's
there's no judging. It's just
right.
Beat me to the line.
Speaking about all the sports that you've covered, like we've said that you've done multiple Olympics, NBA playoffs, basketball, Super Bowl, football, and then World Series baseball, of course, and track. What is the most memorable one for you? What has been the most fun to cover?
Yeah, that's a tricky question because I everything I cover is fun to me mostly. I mean it's just I get to see so much, and everything is different. I walked along with Tiger Woods in 2008 at the U.S. Open in La Jolla outside of San Diego.
What an experience.
The last major he won before
this year.
He just won the Masters this year, and I talked to his coach. I knew his coach a little bit, Hank Haney, and he was telling me, hey, Tiger's hurt. His knee is messed up. And then eventually a couple of days later, I mean, this was over the course of the week leading up to the tournament. He's like, well, he really shouldn't be playing because he's got a torn ACL and a broken leg. He's got shin splint. And he limped around the entire weekend and finished tied with Rocco Mediate, had to birdie the last hole to get to a playoff, and they played the next day. And I was upset about that because my tee time on the course was right at the time that they played
it knocked you out.
Yeah, because I had to work now all of a sudden and followed him around for 18 more holes. And they went 19, won an extra hole on top of that, and he won that one. So being there and seeing an athlete overcome so much with so much pain, and he immediately went into surgery on his knee and his broken leg, and it really hadn't been the same for a long time after that. That was amazing. But how can I compare that to Usain Bolt running the fastest ever, and Michael Phelps swimming faster than anyone and setting world records in the pool and winning by 1/100th of a second in a relay race.
Each one is its own animal.
But the Olympics stands out the most to me. It's the highest high and the lowest low for people. Many athletes who don't get to shine year after year. They get one shot every 4 years, and your event might be 10 seconds long, and you spent years for your 10 seconds, and you win that. And there are people who don't even win the Olympics, and it's the greatest achievement of their life.
Just to get there.
And it's a special story, and I love telling those stories.
I do too. Those feature stories are great. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning, Jerome, giving us all the stories, everything that you've done. And
for this kind of money, Lauren, anytime.
All right. All right, well, that'll do it for today's special sports episode with Good Morning with NTV Houston. I'm Lauren Leal. We'll see y'all next time.